He was dressed now in the Japanese clothes which Sadao had given him, and at the last moment, Sadao wrapped a black cloth about his blonde head. So, children, here in this way, you can see that Dr. Sadao had really been very determined that he has to allow the escape of that prisoner of war, and that is why he was making the due arrangements. So, what he did first of all, he provided him with his own Japanese clothes so that he might not appear to be an American. And then, at the same time, just in order to cover up his blonde hair, in order to cover up his brownish hair, he had also wrapped a black cloth round his head. तो सदाव ने इस तरीके के मेजर्स उठाए, अपने कपड़े दिए और उसके सर के ऊपर काला कपड़ा लपेट दिया कि ताकि कहीं से भी वो अमेरिकन ना मालूम दे. Now, Sadav said, the young American without a word shook Sadav's hand warmly. So now he just thanked Dr. Sadav warmly by shaking his hand and then walked quite well across the floor and down the steps into the darkness of the garden. Ultimately, he went into the garden from where he had to go to the boat. Once, twice, Sadav saw his light flash to find his way. So the man was also a military man, and that is why there wasn't much to tell him. He knew what kind of precautions he had to take, and that is why he had himself not been making very much use of the flashlight. Only once or twice he used it. But that is not going to be suspected. That is what Dr. Sadao realized. So the man was wise enough to understand where his safety was, and accordingly he had just been managing the things. And now he had started proceeding towards the boat from where he was supposed to go to the island where Dr. Sadao had instructed him to go. So that is what you have seen up to now, children. He waited until from the shore there was one more flash. So Dr. Sadao was just trying to identify the signs that the man had been leaving while he had been proceeding towards the island. Dr. Sadao was following the trails left by him. कि जो वो हिंट दे रहा था डॉक्टर सदाव को अपने पहुंचने का, डॉक्टर सदाव उसे अच्छी तरीके से रीड कर रहे थे और इस तरीके से वो सिर्फ ये देखना चाहते थे कि वो आदमी सही सलामत पहुंच गया कि नहीं. Then he closed the partition, and then ultimately Dr. Sadao just locked the partition. That night he slept. You say, the man escaped, the general asked faintly. So that particular night Dr. Sadao had been able to snatch a wonderful sleep. And then the next day when Dr. Sadao reported the matter to the general was surprised. You say the man escaped? कि तुम कह रहे हो कि वो आदमी भाग गया? कैसे आखिर भाग गया? कैसे तुमने उसको संभाला? The general asked faintly. However, the general was still feeling extremely weak. He had been operated upon a week before, an emergency operation to which Sadao had been called in night. So, as you have been told here, the general had been operated on only a week before. And that is why he had been finding himself in a great lurch. That is why he had been finding himself in a great difficulty. And it was also a kind of emergency operation for which Dr. Sadao had been invited at night. And Sadao had executed the operation, and ultimately it was a success. For 12 hours, Sadao had not been sure the general would live. So as the operation was really quite critical, for a long time Dr. Sadao was himself not sure whether the general would survive or not. But ultimately he survived. तो ये बात आपने यहाँ पे देखी कि जनरल का एक इमरजेंसी ऑपरेशन हुआ, जिसके बाद काफ़ी लंबे टाइम के बाद जनरल जो है वो अपने होशो हवाश में आया. और जब डॉक्टर सदाव ने उसको बताया कि हाँ वो आदमी भाग गया है, तो जनरल भी बहुत हैरान हुआ. ये बात आपने यहाँ तक देखी बच्चों. The gallbladder was much involved. So what the writer tells you here, children, is the general was infected and the infection had been flared out in the gallbladder. Gallbladder, you know, that is an organ of the body. So the infection had been flared out in that particular part of the body. Then the old man had begun to breathe deeply again and to demand food. So now he had started breathing deeply, he had started gasping, and he also wanted to have some food. कि आपने क्या देखा कि जो इन्फेक्शन जनरल को हुआ था उसमें उसका गॉल ब्लैडर अफेक्टेड हो गया था और डॉक्टर सदाव ने बड़ी सावधानी से उसके गॉल ब्लैडर को ऑपरेशन किया. अब वो आदमी काफ़ी कुछ बेहतर कंडीशन में था और हालांकि वो अभी ठीक से बोल नहीं पा रहा था, जनरल हाँफने लगता था, और लेकिन अब उसने खाने वगैरह की डिमांड करनी शुरू कर दी थी. तो दैट वॉज अ साइन ऑफ रिकवरी. Sadav had not been able to ask about the assassins. So Dr. Sadav was just not in the condition to inquire the general about assassins, because still the general was not fully recovered, still he was in the process of recovery. So in that kind of a condition, Dr. Sadao did not want to give him a mental strain by asking him to remember the things about the assassins and why he forgot to send the assassins. So all these things Dr. Sadao generally did not want to remind the general, क्योंकि अभी ऐसा कराने से उसके दिमाग पे स्ट्रेन पड़ता जो कि उसके लिए अच्छा नहीं था। तो डॉक्टर सदाव ने सोचा कि ये मौका भी नहीं है ये सब पूछने का कि आपने वादा किया था फिर आप क्यों भूल गए, और ऑलरेडी उनको जो करना था डॉक्टर सदाव वो तो कर ही चुके थे, उसको भगा ही चुके थे, तो उस बात को कोई छेड़ने से भी कोई खास फायदा नहीं था। So far as he knew, they had never come. So far as Dr. Sadao knew, the assassins had never come. The servants had returned and Yumi had cleaned the guest room thoroughly and had burned sulfur in it to get the white man's smell out of it. So after the prisoner of war had gone away from there, the room had been cleaned up and sulfur was burnt in it so that the smell of the white man might also be removed. तो यूमी ने ये सब सारी चीज़ें की कमरे के अंदर, जैसे अपने लोगों के यहाँ वो लोबान वगैरह या धूप बत्ती जला दी जाती है, इसी तरीके से वहाँ पे वो सल्फर जलाई गई उसकी गंध को दूर भगाने के लिए, और कमरे को अच्छे से साफ किया गया। Nobody said anything. Only the gardener was cross because he had got behind his chrysanthemums. So everybody was now fine, everybody was now happy, all the servants were also very happy. Only the gardener was cross, only the gardener was a bit angry. Because in the meantime, as long as he had not been there in the house, he had not been able to take care of the flowers there. And there was something negative that had happened to his chrysanthemums. Chrysanthemums जो हैं ये फ्लावर होते हैं गुलदाउदी के, तो जो है चूंकि इतने दिनों में फ्लावर्स की कायदे से केयर नहीं हुई तो इस वजह से फ्लावर्स खराब होने लगे थे, तो वो उसी को लेकर के नाराज था, और इस बात से गार्डनर जो है वो थोड़ा सा नाखुश था, बाकी सारे सर्वेंट्स काफी खुश नजर आ रहे थे। But after a week, Sadao felt the general was well enough to be spoken to about the prisoner. So, after giving him the treatment for a week or so, now Dr. Sadao thought that the general was good enough, that the general was sound enough health-wise to be spoken to about the prisoner. So in this way, Dr. Sadao decided that now he can talk to the general about the prisoner. Yes, Excellency, he escaped, Sadao now said. So Dr. Sadao now told the general quite with an affirmation, quite with a confidence, he told the general that the prisoner has escaped. कि वो भाग गया भाई, वो तो भागने वाला था ही, जब आपकी कस्टडी से छूट करके हमारे यहाँ भाग आया तो हमारे यहाँ कौन सा फोर्टिफिकेशन है, कौन सी मिलिट्री लगी है, हमारे यहाँ से भी चला गया। He coughed, signifying that he had not said all he might have said. So while Dr. Sadao made the statement that the prisoner had gone away, he coughed as if he wanted to say something else, but he dared not say. कि उन्होंने ऐसे कफिंग की कि जैसे अभी उनकी बात पूरी कंप्लीट नहीं हुई है, कुछ है जो वो कहना चाह रहे हैं लेकिन डर के मारे कह नहीं पा रहे हैं। बट वॉज अनविलिंग टू डिस्टर्ब द जनरल फर्दर, कि डॉक्टर सदाव वो आगे अपनी बात को नहीं बढ़ा पा रहे हैं क्योंकि वो जनरल को डिस्टर्ब नहीं करना चाह रहे हैं, ये बात यहाँ पे लिखी हुई है। बट द ओल्ड मैन ओपनड हिज आईज सडनली। दैट प्रिजनर, ही सेड विद सम एनर्जी, डिड आई नॉट प्रॉमिस यू आई वुड किल हिम फॉर यू? So now the general asked a question to Dr. Sadao whether he had not promised him that he is going to perform the killing of that person for the safety of Dr. Sadao. जनरल ने कहा कि मैंने तुमसे क्या वादा नहीं किया था कि मैं उस आदमी को मार दूंगा तुम्हारे लिए, और फिर भी तुमने उसे जाने दिया। तो दैट इज व्हाट द जनरल जस्ट फेल्ट लाइक आस्किंग डॉक्टर सदाव, कि जनरल शायद ऐसा कुछ डॉक्टर सदाव से पूछना चाहता था कि आखिर कैसे, जब मैंने कहा उसके बावजूद भी कैसे तुमने उसे निकल जाने दिया, तुमने उसे होल्ड क्यों नहीं किया, ऐसा वो कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे। You did, Excellency, Sadao said. Well, well, the old man said in a tone of amazement. So the general was himself quite amazed. He was himself quite surprised as to how the man had escaped. And Dr. Sadao also agreed that definitely the general had promised, and he wanted to say that he had also waited for his assassins for 3 nights, but then when the assassins did not come, he cannot say how and when the man got a chance to escape away from there. So I did, but you see, I was suffering a good deal. So here the general says that definitely he had made a promise. So I did means I is referring to the general here. So I did means definitely the general did make a promise. But as he was really suffering badly, he was just concerned about his own well-being कि वो इतना तकलीफ में था कि उसे और कुछ सूझ नहीं रहा था. The truth is, I thought of nothing but myself. So the general says that he was only worried about himself. In short, I forgot my promise to you. I wondered, Your Excellency, Sadao murmured. So here the general says that he had forgotten the promise that he had made to Dr. Sadao on account of the pain that he had been sustaining. And then Dr. Sadao says that this was really very surprising. How could a general forget his promise? It was certainly very careless of me. So the general once again asserts that it was really very careless of him. He should not have allowed such a thing to happen. He must not have been so careless. But you understand, it was not the lack of patriotism or the dereliction of duty. So he said that it was neither the dereliction of duty, it was neither the connival of duty कि ड्यूटी की अनदेखी तो ये बिल्कुल भी नहीं थी और लैक ऑफ पैट्रियोटिज्म तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं था. ये सिर्फ उसकी हेल्थ कंडीशन ऐसी थी कि वो इन सब चीज़ों के बारे में सोच नहीं पाया और ऐसा हो गया. ये बात जनरल ने अपनी सफाई में कही. He looked anxiously at his doctor. So by the time the general was also quite troubled, by the time the general was also in a great anxiety because whatever had happened was really not good. जो कुछ भी हुआ था वो अच्छा नहीं था. इस बात को सोच करके वो काफी चिंता में पड़ गया. और क्या सोच करके वो चिंता में था? Let us see in the next line. If the matter should come out, you would understand that, wouldn't you? Certainly, Your Excellency, Sadao said. So that was the matter of worry for the general, that if this matter has been leaked, if this matter has been out, that there was a prisoner of war in custody and he has been able to escape ultimately, definitely it is going to be a great defamation of the armies of Japan. And moreover, it is going to become a town talk. And then the general is also going to be in a dilemma as to what to do with Dr. Sadao, because the general did not want to give any punishment to Dr. Sadao. He had got a great love and affection for Dr. Sadao, so he did not want to harm it. And he had also known that Dr. Sadao was not wrong in whatever he had done. But still, for the public opinion, he would have to punish Dr. Sadao if the matter was out. तो यही बात उसने कही कि अगर ये बात लीक हो जाती है तो तुम समझ सकते हो कि फिर मजबूरी में भी मुझे बहुत सारे कदम उठाने पड़ सकते हैं. तो डॉक्टर सदाव ने कहा कि बात सही है आपकी. He suddenly comprehended that the general was in the palm of his hand and that, as a consequence, he himself was perfectly safe. So, Dr. Sadao had also been able to read the sentiments of the general. He had also known that there is nobody else who can cure the general. And in this way, the life of the general is in the palm of his hand. कि जनरल की जान उसकी मुट्ठी में है तो वो सेफ है, उसे कुछ होगा नहीं. लेकिन हाँ, ये बात तो जरूर थी कि इससे एक पब्लिक ओपिनियन खराब होने का खतरा तो था ही कि देखो जनरल कितना पार्शियल है, उसने जो है डॉक्टर सदाव को बचा लिया, कोई और होता तो उसको जान से मार दिया जाता. आई कैन स्वेयर टू योर लॉयल्टी एक्सेलेंसी, he said to the old general, and to your zeal against the enemy. So Dr. Sadao just wanted to swear before the general. He wanted to swear before the general about his loyalty, that there isn't any problem, there isn't any shortfall of his loyalty, कि उनकी लॉयल्टी में कोई कमी नहीं है. इस बात की के लिए वो कसम खाने को तैयार हैं. और जो जनरल की जील है दुश्मनों के खिलाफ, जनरल का जो जोश है दुश्मनों के खिलाफ, उसकी कसम खा करके वो कहते हैं कि उनकी ईमानदारी पर क्वेश्चन मार्क नहीं आना चाहिए. उनकी ईमानदारी में कोई कमी नहीं है, भले ही ये एक देशद्रोह जैसा काम लगता हो, पर किया उन्होंने बहुत ऑनेस्टली है. ये बात डॉक्टर सदाव ने बोली. You are a good man, the general murmured and closed his eyes. You will be rewarded. So the general ultimately said that Dr. Sadav has done a great job and he is going to be rewarded. कि उनको इसका पुरस्कार मिलेगा, वो एक अच्छे इंसान हैं. ये बात जनरल ने बोली. So most probably by tomorrow we would be able to complete this chapter. Okay, thank you.